These are things that, in this day and age, I think the most important thing is that we want a record of who it is in case we're not saying that everybody who gets a vendor's license or a peddler's license or whatever you want to call it is legit. I mean, we'll try to verify it as much as we can. But the important thing is that if they're not legit, we we at least have their information so that we can go after them at a later date. So it's something that we really need because we get calls all the time with people trying to sell stuff outside in the unincorporated areas.
I'd entertain a motion to approve this so we can get into the discussion. Mr. Eckhoff, second by Mr. Byrne. Questions and comments about this? Mr. Byrne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a great idea. I know I live in Bradley, and Bradley does that in Bourbonnais, and they then go on social media and let everyone know who follows those social media platforms, put a face with the name too. So it's a great idea.
Mr. Smith.
The only thing that I noticed in it was your period of expiration. For a 30-day period at a time. I'm thinking of a number of the guys that come out in the rural community who like barn painting, silos, things of that nature. Couldn't we consider making it an annual license or something? Because these guys run 10, 12 months out of the year.
That's the board's pleasure.
That'd be my recommendation.
Mr. Snipes.
I am kind of concur in part, but dissent in part. And then in this regard, I have to look at the farmers that are out there that sells those vegetables and things of that nature. I'm sure they can all get a license, but for the most part, we would have to make this law known to them. And the other thing is that it has been a custom that they, gather their vegetables or wherever, go to past that four-way stop and just sell the vegetables. I do know what we're aiming at, and certainly it's plausible, but I don't want to penalize or eventually criminalize those individuals that are out, that are just farmers that are selling the food and vegetables and things of that nature. So I'd like some thoughts as far as how we can either amend it to include them or make it so that it's not adverse to them.
Mr. Eckhoff.
I don't think it really has anything to do with the farmers, but
Pull your mic down a little bit.
I don't think it really has anything to do with the farmers, but I think the 30 days is fine with me, personally.
I would probably have them look at peddling food from vehicles. That would be part of farmers. That's what they do. So if I know like little carts and ice cream carts like that, we do want to make sure that those individuals have the peddling license, but I don't want to penalize farmers that are out there in that particular area that do that on a regular basis for the living. So that's where I just have the only objection, because I know as a kid coming up, that's what we did on the back.
Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you. I just had, I read through the part on how the application goes, so that's done here at the Sheriff's Department. That was one question, but $100 for a year for a license?
For peddlers.
For peddlers?
Yep,
Yeah,
solicitors is 15
is 15.
for 30 days. I think that one of the important things to note is that this is an initial draft, and again, we borrowed from surrounding communities, so we thought maybe consistency was important, but sometimes there's things that make a certain community unique. Maybe the unincorporated areas, maybe there's a reason to change this a little bit, but that's up to the board. That there are changes you want to see.
Mr. Smith.
Something just crossed the mind. How does this differentiate from our contractor license, which might be You know, I'm thinking Tom Carroll does the building paintings out on the west end. Would that fall under the contractor's license or a peddler's license?
Well, contractor is what allows them to actually go out and do the work, right, to apply for the building permits. If they were going door to door trying to sell roofing services, that would be a peddler's, a solicitor's license. And that's really where the problem is, right? The problem isn't the guy who gets the resident calls a roofing company and says, I've got a hole in my roof, can you come out and fix it? The problems, I would imagine, Sheriff, is when the roofing company is going to the resident and saying, you've got a hole in your roof, when they really don't, when they're taking advantage of seniors. So this kind of bridges that gap. You know, there's just nothing on the books right now to regulate these individuals, to have a record of who they are. Thank you, Sheriff.
Sheriff?
In addition to that, there's also peddlers that go around wanting to blacktop your driveway. You know, so, I mean, those are obviously other issues that we want to get away from too, or at least let them get a permit so we're aware of who they are and they don't take advantage of the seniors.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve it as it reads. Do we need to make any adjustments or changes? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Oh, yeah, that's for county board, never mind. We're spending money or collecting money. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a good one. Public Defender's Office, Mr. Pentewick. In your package, you have a copy of the November monthly report. Take a motion to approve. Mr. Long, second by Mr. Fairfield. Morning, Ed.
Good morning, everybody. The report speaks for itself. With the year end coming up, I'm going to kind of reboot again to see where we need to go paperwork-wise as far as reporting, as far as making sure that the data is correct. I've been talking to my assistants about, you know, long-term goals regarding backlog, and I know I want to talk to Mr. Rowe about that at his convenience so we can kind of get a unified front. It benefits the county, it benefits the clients. We've talked about this before. It benefits the jail. In a perfect world, things would rotate quickly, but that's on the next year's horizon, which is something that I definitely want to look into. Other than that, I really have nothing to add. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Questions for Mr. Pentewick? I see on there that there was 19 juveniles opened in November and you closed 29.
You know what? I'm glad. Thank you for bringing that up, Roger. We do have a full-time public defender now in juvenile court, Becky Solani. She is very proactive in getting these types of issues resolved. It's a priority for her, and she's doing exactly what she is putting out to do. So that's definitely a good thing. Correct.
Good, good. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Anything else for the committee?
Nope. Have a good holiday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next is Mr. Latham from probation. Also in the package, you have a copy of his monthly report. Take a motion to approve that by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Byrne. Morning, Tom.
Morning.
Comments on your report, sir?
As you can see, we have year-to-date a little over 27,000 contacts, a little over 3,300 drug tests, 270 last month alone, and currently have 10 minors in detention at River Valley. So that's just the highlights of it. Any questions on it?
Questions? Have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Just real quick, the pretrial positions, the fully funded positions from the state, we're going through the hiring process now. Should have those individuals in place the first Monday after the first. It's about the 5th or 6th, I don't know. And so we're moving on that, and that'll be in place and be ready to go. So, and last, the drug court auction, I don't have it in front of me, but it roughly made about $18,000 this year, which is about $2,500 more than last year. So a very good year. So thank you for everyone who participated and helped with that. So
Any time frame for the ankle monitoring for the juveniles?
We're ready to go with that. Since yesterday's meeting, we have obviously we already worked with a company with the adults. We have policy, procedure, everything's in place. So it's just a matter of when it's needed, it'll be ready to go.
Good. Any questions for Mr. Latham?
Tom, do you think it's time to maybe do an analysis of River Valley, kind of where we're at with detention days and where we started with this when we were bought out, just to kind of see the average. It seems like it's lower than we thought it was going to be, the average detention days. And
Yeah, there's 10 in custody now, but that's been around 6 to 8.
right.
roughly.
And I think our estimate was 8 going out, and that impacts how long we're spending down our liquidity in that facility. So it just helps if I don't know if we can maybe put it on for February to get
That's fine.
give
We
you a
can run
month like just to put the numbers together and kind of see where we're at.
Yeah, we
Fill us
have
in.
that information. It's just a matter of running it. So
Yeah.
it's not a problem.
Does the board want to take a look at that?
Yeah.
It seems like it's a good idea. We want to kind of let it settle down and get a year and a half under our belt.
And it'll
so-
give us a good idea after 2022.
Right, we have to start planning to add that back to the budget at some point, because nothing's free. So we have to kind of make sure we know, it's probably 22 or 23 when we think it's coming back.
Yes.
So, okay.
Not a
Thank
problem.
Okay, thank you. Sheriff. In your packet, and you should have received by email the monthly report from the sheriff. Take a motion to approve. Mr. Burns, second by Mr. Fairfield. Oh.
Good morning. The monthly report, I believe, was sent out last week, last Friday. Hopefully everybody received it. Not much has changed numbers-wise. Our local average is staying steady, still over 270. Our out-of-county average is at 379, and that's a combination of marshals and ICE. Our marshals numbers have gone down a little bit. In November, we're averaging about 339, so that's quite a difference from the yearly average of 379. So, and those are, again, those fluctuate. So, one of the things, and in fact, I just saw it on the news this morning, for those that are interested, the border arrests and the border captures are down significantly. Whether that will affect us at this point, I don't know, but we'll kind of wait and see where that ends up. But transport-wise, we've done 635 more transports this year, mostly attributable to going to Chicago with ICE, and our medical transports have increased as well. And as I mentioned, I think in the early months of the year, we are on pace for over 1,000 people who've been released from the Illinois Department of Corrections back to Kankakee County. So if recidivism is 50%, you can figure that 500 of them will be back in some point in our system. So just to keep that in mind. Under sworn services, obviously we've kind of focused all year long on these fatals that continue to occur. We'll address that a little bit in the PowerPoint here, but right now that number's at 23, and we continue to work with other agencies and provide patrol and identify problem areas where some of these are occurring. So, questions on the report?
Mr. Snipes.
Question. I know you go back and forth to Chicago a lot. We're not subjected to those exorbitant parking fees, are we?
Not our police officers or corrections.
Oh, okay.
No.
Good.
If I go to a meeting up there, I have to pay for parking.
Right, but I was just thinking.
Or you have to pay for parking for
Right.
me.
But if you're just going back and forth to van, that's what I was
But
thinking.
no, they don't.
Oh.
No, they don't pay any parking.
Thanks.
So,
Any other questions or comments on the report? Have a motion to approve. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Brief animal control update.
Yeah, just a quick animal control update, just so this committee's aware. Our animal control is still going to report to the Community Services Committee. However, with it being under the arm of the Sheriff's Office, we just kind of want to keep you guys advised as to what's been going on and how the transition has gone, and I can tell you that the transition has gone very well. Carrie Laird, who is the director now, has jumped in with both feet and has been very busy doing some things that we feel like we need to do to move the department forward. We've met with the shelters, we've met with the vet that is contracted by the county. We're setting up meetings with local municipalities to contract with them for animal control services. And so things are heading in the right direction. So overall, it's going very well, but we're 11 days in, so that could change by next month, but I doubt it. Carrie's doing a great job. So, any questions on that?
I got a question, just a comment. Maybe you ought to bring Carrie to one of these meetings.
No,
and
you know what? When I realized that I had it on the agenda, I forgot to tell her to come. So yeah,
just to introduce her
Yeah,
to this
she'll-
committee. I mean,
yeah,
the
right.
people in community service will know her and that. So,
well, if she comes, she's going to bring a pet, and you're going to have to adopt it. So,
Mr. Wheeler.
I'll make that motion then. No, just a question. I read somewhere that we were closing animal control and everyone was laid off. And aren't you hiring 2 people?
we're actually hiring. Yeah, those have been posted. We are going to interview shortly, and the employees are the same ones that were there when we took over on December 1st, and are doing a great job for us and buying into what we're trying to do, and that's a good thing. So,
I'm not being sarcastic. Thank you.
If I have to adopt a puppy, you have to get off of Facebook.
wow. Okay. Moving on.
Any other questions about the animal control?
I don't know that I've ever seen him speechless.
Okay, moving on to the phone system replacement at the JCDC, Timothy F. Pekowski Public Safety Center.
Yeah, the phone system, as some of you may recall, we asked way back in the day, probably back in 2016, we knew that our phone system was heading south, mainly due to technology. However, the board was actually back then considering purchasing a new system then. However, we backed off of that and said we'll limp through as best we can based on a number of issues, mainly financial. And we've held it off for 3 years, and it was down twice last week. And the problem is, if we could get parts for it, it would be a non-issue. We would continue to get parts. The problem is we are running out of places to purchase parts, normally off of eBay, and they're just not there anymore. The system obviously is a little antiquated. So we have a quote back from 2016 that was around $58,000, I believe. We are obviously going to get updated quotes for the next, but all I'm asking for is just to move this to finance and we can get their approval to get this passed.
Will you have numbers by finance
Yes.
for next week?
Yeah. Next week?
Yeah, we have Thursday. We have executive and finance together for the holidays.
Ooh. I don't know if we'll have them next week. Maybe. We'll try. If not, we'll tell finance to put it off for another month.
We did talk about this. I don't know if a lot of folks remember, but we did talk about it, and we pushed it down the road because we thought we could limp along. And, sounds like it's time to do that. I would agree. But
Things are ready then for next week. We take a motion to move this to finance. Ms. Parker, second by Mr. Snipes. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
State of the Sheriff's Office
Well,
presentation.
Mr. Chairman, if I could do the last one, the stakeholder engagement first?
Yes.
Okay.
That's fine.
So we'll come back to the State of the Sheriff's Office presentation, but last Friday, myself and Chief Kalawenzu and Chief Schultz attended what was referred to as the 2019 Stakeholder Engagement meeting up at the Department of Homeland Security, up on what used to be Congress, but they've now changed the name of the road to Ida B. Wells, so it was basically where Department of Homeland Security's office is. The three of us went there. We were invited by the Department of Homeland Security. And by stakeholder engagement, it involved everybody from sheriffs, religious personnel who deal with immigration attorneys. I mean, it was really good because they got everybody in one room so that if there were complaints, if there were issues, everybody was there. The director, the field office director of ICE, the field office director of Homeland Security, passed on a lot of information of what they do and what their focuses are in regards to, in our case, and what we are interested in, obviously, is the immigration, because that's such an issue that affects everybody, and we know it affects everybody. And one of the most important things he said in this meeting, and as he was writing, I had my phone out because I didn't have my book with me, and I'm trying to type what he talked about, but I did talk to him yesterday just to confirm that I had it right. ICE Chicago focuses on 4 things when it comes to immigration. And this is important for you guys to know so that when people want to pass on information to you, we want you to have the accurate information. So the 4 things that ICE focuses on are those who have entered the country illegally, have gone to court, ordered by an immigration judge to leave the country. So these are people that aren't in custody. These are people that have gone to court, have been ordered by an immigration judge to leave the country, and have refused to leave. ICE goes after those people. Secondly, those that have been deported once already or more, have returned to our country illegally. ICE focuses on those individuals because that's a felony. Thirdly, those convicted of crimes. That's who ICE is going after. That's their focus. And lastly, those arrested and charged with crimes. Those are who ICE is going after. So I think that's important for everybody to know and everybody to understand. And I don't know that ICE necessarily does a great job in getting that information out. But I think the immigration attorneys, I know the religious people that were there, they may not totally agree with it altogether, but at least they know that's what they're going after. They're not going after mom and pop who've been here for 20 years and have raised a family and all that. So I think those are important things. And the last thing he said, and if I could repeat it in Spanish, I would, but I don't speak Spanish. But he did. But the translation was, ICE does not do raids. In spite of what you may see in the paper, in spite of what you may see on TV, ICE does not do raids. What ICE does is they focus on specific targets. So if they target an individual who maybe meets one of these 4 criteria that I talked about, I mean, anybody else around in that situation, you know, who knows what they do with those individuals, but ICE does not do what the media likes to refer to as raids. So, just FYI. Questions on that?
Mr. Snipes.
If you can, just send me that brief narrative via email or whatever, because I would like to post that. I think I sent a young lady to you, soon to be doctor that had some questions, and I told her just talk to you as far as that's concerned, because they were trying to build up the support. And I was saying it's not that I'm opposed to their endeavors, but there are several things that I do notice when there's a problem in the community, and I've had the opportunity to talk with the Spanish population. A lot of times I advocate on their behalf, especially in the census and things, to make sure that, you know, whatever fears they do have has been resolved. But what I suggested is that they utilize their time to build a legal defense fund. I think that would be most constructive, because all we do is provide a service. So in this myriad of individuals who do come to our county, most of them are out of county. I don't see a lot of individuals that's in Kankakee County coming up to the mic. So I understand if they want to handle the problem. I think it's misplaced to bring it to Kankakee County. She goes to Washington and then address it there or go through your senators as far as that's concerned. I wanted to ask the question, did Chewy show up at that meeting?
No.
I didn't think so. But my thing was, I applaud, again, the sheriff's office when he didn't have to, but he did, take them through or whatever, which would eliminate a lot of what they do on a day-to-day basis. But all of these myths that's out there that's making it look like it's just, the county is just jumping out here and we're doing all of this service. That simply is not true. And I investigate, research, been there to the jails or whatever. And my thing is, I think this information serves nice because it will be on my Facebook page. It serves as a as good information to basically disseminate out to the public.
I will send that to you. There were representatives from other congressmen and women who were there locally, mainly in Chicago. Senator Durbin and Senator Duckworth both had representatives there, along with some other representatives and senators from the state of Illinois. So they were there.
Any other questions or comments?
All right,
Okay.
I will go through this fairly quickly. For those of you that went to the State of the County breakfast, this may be repetitive, and for that I apologize. But I think it's important that as board members, whether you've been here a while or whether you're just newly appointed to the board recently, I think it's important that there is information that you should know about what our office does, both on the corrections side and the sworn side. So I will go through this relatively quickly. So if you look at the boards, the duties of the sheriff's office, and sometimes these things, we are certainly a police agency, but these are some important bullet points from the standpoint of, and again, this is certainly not everything because we kind of took we highlighted the important things that everybody assumes that we do, but some people still don't know, and I'm not going to go over all the statutes with you, but basically we work together to fulfill the statutory and ethical obligation of the office of sheriff. The duties of the sheriff: we serve the courts, we maintain and execute warrants, civil process, court orders, and judgments, and other duties as directed by the courts. We're conservators of the peace, and I say that only because we've heard before where people have said, well, there's nothing in the statute that requires you to patrol the roads. Well, there's nothing in the statute that requires the village of Bourbonnais or the city of Kankakee to patrol the roads. So that's really a non-issue. To be the conservator of the peace, prevent crime, is something that you as a board allow us to do, and for that we appreciate it. But it's not something out there that we have to, that you have to say, well, you guys don't have to patrol the roads, and you're absolutely right, we don't. But all those who live in the rural areas and the unincorporated areas, when they need police services, who are they going to call? Certainly not Ghostbusters. Supervisor of Safety. The Office of Supervisor of Safety is created for each county to be held by the sheriff of the county. Jail facilities. You all know we have 2 jail facilities. The sheriff's responsible for both of those, and we are responsible for the prisoners. And lastly, we have custody and care of the courthouse and the jail. So those are just simplified duties of the sheriff's office. I talked earlier about the fatals, and here is these are 23 fatals that have happened this year. As you can see, we have all the locations indicated on there, which is how we go about our business in trying to fix problem areas. And without focusing, this is a little bit easier from a map. If you look at the bottom, and for those of you that there's a bottom area right here, that is 45 and 8,000 right out here, just south. That is a problem area for us. We have met with the Department of Transportation, various fire departments, the Illinois State Police, to improve that intersection as best we can. So there are obviously other problem areas that we are also focusing on, but right now that 45, 52, and 8,000 is a problem area for us. So something that we're well aware of. Constituents served, what does that mean? A lot of people don't know this, but the sheriff's office actually serves the largest group of residents in the county. In other words, we have more residents that the sheriff's office is responsible for than the city of Kankakee, which is the largest municipality in the county. The city of Kankakee, depending on what census number you're looking at, the numbers that we had, which and it says down at the underneath it where we got the information, that there's 26,000, approximately just over 26,000 residents of the city of Kankakee. Bourbonnais is at 18.5 and so on. When you have a county of 110,000, the sheriff's office, I don't know why that's on there, but the sheriff's office is actually responsible for 34,163 residents. So almost about 8,000 more than the largest jurisdiction in the county. And if you look at the three municipalities with the two asterisks by them, Herscher, St. Anne, Aroma Park, those municipalities do not have 24-hour coverage, so obviously we are responsible for those when they are not on duty as well. Square miles patrolled. So with those 34,000, we're spread over, the unincorporated area makes up 636 miles of the 680 miles in the county. So more than likely our backup is not 2 blocks away. Our backup could be 50 miles away. Fortunately, we have great cooperation with all the municipalities in town, in our county rather. We get along very well, we work well together, and that's a big help on both ends. We help them, they help us. We are, this county, and has been said before by people outside of our county, how well the police agencies in our county work together. So that's a credit to all the administrators and police agencies within the county. The corrections expenses. So if you look at this number, and these date back all the way to 2005 when we first started housing for our out-of-county prisoners, our bed rental program, as some people affectionately refer to it as. Our over-under budget, whether we're over-under budget, and I would call it rather over-under expenses rather than a budget, but it's really relative to our out-of-county population. As our numbers go up, our expenses also go up, but so does our revenue. So, and fortunately, our revenue normally outpaces our expenses when it comes to out-of-county. Some of the expenses that we have are out of our control. Medical issues are one. We spend a lot of time, and I've said this before, that the majority of inmates that we have in our custody locally don't take care of themselves while they're on the street. They don't get medical treatment. But we, as a county, are required to care for their medical needs. And I've said it before, I don't have to tell you again that our medical department is far and above a great medical department. And I've said it before too, these guys in here get better medical treatment than anybody in this room. So as you can see, the total down at the bottom, might change my pointer here, $130 million in expenses dating back to 2005. So the revenue. If you look at the revenue, you can see that based on the graph that the majority of our revenue comes from the United States Marshal Service. But you can see on the left-hand side that list of all the agencies that we have housed for since 2005. Cook County, McLean County, Kane County, Iroquois County, Department of Homeland Security, the Marshals, and that total for that same time period of revenue is $117,333,000, which, if you take the $130 million in expenses subtract the 117 in revenue, that leaves you with about 13,300,000 divided by 15 is we have ran the corrections division for about $909,000 a year. And I'm not sure you can find anywhere else across the country that has done that. So credit to the board for allowing us to do it. Credit to our corrections staff and our patrol division for keeping this program successful.
What would, without the bed rental, what would it cost us approximately, or is that?
That's my last slide.
Never
Don't
mind.
get ahead of yourself, Bones. Come on. But that's a great question. That's a great question. So this slide, the corrections average daily population, I only got 2 slides, so we'll be quick. Average daily population, you can see the yellow represents out of county, so you can see that the majority of years our out of county population has exceeded our local population, which is technically where we want to be if we want it to benefit the county. There were a couple of years where obviously early on the first year as we built it up, and then the lull in 2015, 2016, which doesn't mean that it didn't benefit us, because it did, but it didn't benefit us quite as well. So it's been a positive thing for us, and hopefully it continues for a long, long time. So, and then lastly, the cost of housing locals versus out of county. So one of the problems that we have talked about a number of different times, because everybody says, what's it cost you to house an inmate? What's it cost you to house an out of county inmate? And the biggest issue with that is, where do you draw the line with staff, the need for staff versus the need for no additional staff when you're talking numbers? If our local number is 270, which is our average, and we get a call from somebody and says, hey, I want to house 2 people in your jail, well, the cost for us basically amounts to what we pay them in meals, what we pay for their meals every day. That would be the cost of those 2 inmates, because we have to keep the lights on, whether we have out-of-county inmates or not. We have to have water, whether we have out-of-county inmates or not. And if you look across the top, and this is 2019, and this is the estimate because all of our budget numbers aren't in yet, but this number represents the number right here under the direct jail expense is what we just amended, what you as a board just amended our budget to yesterday at $12,360,000. Our total utility expense at both jails is $787,000. Our liability insurance is $824,000. That's the total number. And then our staff benefit expense, which includes your IMRF contributions and your contributions to employee benefits, of $3,192,000 for a total of $17 million, just over $17 million right here in this far right column. Now, how you break that down, you get into what our revenue is and what our direct jail expense is if we don't have the out-of-county prisoners. And that involves our staffing levels, which would drop significantly. But remember, one of the things that is probably most confusing, if we have not one out-of-county inmate, we're going to have 75 employees. Of those 75 employees are the highest paid correction staff we have because it's by seniority. So everybody we hire to work in the jail when we have out-of-county inmates is on the bottom part of the payroll. So they're the cheapest employees we got, and I don't mean that literally or figuratively, whatever. So if we don't have them, we're getting rid of our lowest paid employees. You're still going to have these 75 employees are going to make the same money regardless of whether we have 0 out of county or whether we have 300. So, and I think sometimes that gets a little bit confusing for people because we sometimes have a tendency to forget that we are responsible for those local inmates, which is our priority, obviously. So our utility expense broken down, those numbers are simply if we were to close the downtown jail. Those were the utilities that cost, that's what the utilities cost at the downtown jail in that second, it's that second row under utilities, and it's got local and out of county. Same thing with liability insurance. In talking to our liability company or liability carrier, those are the numbers that they gave us. And same with staff benefits. If you look at the staff benefits, the out-of-county benefits aren't that great because your IMRF contributions aren't as great. And a lot of our younger correctional officers still live at home and are still on mom and dad's insurance. God bless them. So that's a significant savings but when those people are gone, you're still going to have your 75 that have their own insurance that the county's paying all their benefits for. So something to keep in mind. So the total jail expenses down at on the far right-hand column, the local total jail expenses is slightly over $10 million. The out-of-county cost is about $6.8 million. And then that brings you down to this third area here of our local inmates and versus our out-of-county inmates. Our local cost per inmate is about $102.32 based on these numbers. Our out-of-county cost is about $48.84. So when you figure we're charging $90 a day, you can do the math on that and figure out how that benefits us. And again, that's just not expenses versus revenue. That is, which is our budget. That is all the expenses, utilities, benefits, liability insurance. So these numbers are significant when it comes to the benefit that this program gives to us. So if you look down at the bottom, down in this area here, the total jail expense with the inmate program is $17 million. The total jail revenue with the revenues that we have this year, plus the about $172 million of revenue, or $172,000 we would have anyway, comes out to about $12,277 for a cost to run the jail at about $4.8 million. And again, that's everything. That's everything. Without the inmate program, which is on the far right-hand side down at the bottom, the total jail expenses is still 10.1. Your jail revenue is only $172,000, and the cost to run the jail is about $9.9 million. So I hope that, and we will continue to update this, and these numbers of our employees, and I'm not very good at Paylocity, so I did a lot of this manually, but we went through every employee and got every employee's hourly rate, every employee's benefits, whether they were single, family, whatever. And so these numbers are as accurate as we can get them as of today. So.
Sorry if I say something.
Sure. I don't have any more slides.
Well, sorry about that. Any questions or comments on this presentation?
All right.
Thank you.
Nope.
Oh, Mr. Lear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Going back to traffic fatalities, you had the slide showing those. Now, that includes all fatalities in unincorporated and municipal?
Yeah, we used at the state of the county, I think we had a different form because there was 3 less at the state of the county. We added 3, so we changed the slide actually. And I believe there were 6 of those at that time, 20 or 19, however many we had. And I think now with the last 2, I think there might be 8 total. 8 total of those 23 are in county's jurisdiction.
Okay, thank you.
If you go to that other slide one more time.
Which one?
The next one. Oh, back that one.
Yep.
I noticed there's nothing over in the Hirsch area this time. That's, I know I shouldn't say that, but I mean,
Please. Yeah, we don't want to mention any area specific to say there hasn't been anything there, but as I said, we're doing the same work on the 45, 52, 8,000 interchange.
That was my point.
That we did,
You guys
yeah.
worked on that over there along with the coroner's office and everything, and we've eliminated, I shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
The problem area has been reduced,
He's jinxing us,
so,
Bob, he's jinxing us.
sorry. I think it speaks words
Yeah,
for the work that's being done.
again, I mean, but that comes to relationships and dealing with the other agencies and working together, and that's what we do.
Okay, thank you.
I'll mention, I said at the full board, but just so this committee knows, since the courthouse is in the custody of the sheriff, we're gonna be talking probably after the meeting, about the ADA courtroom
Yep.
and the jury deliberation room, which is where, that's where the people are brought before they go into the courtroom, out from the jail. So I just wanted to mention to the committee that we're gonna make sure that everything's in line with the security and everything that's going on there, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, coroner. In your packet, you have a copy of the monthly report and the monthly receipts for the coroner's office. Take a motion to approve. Mr. Burns, second by Mr. Eckhoff. No Shave November is over.
Pardon me?
No Shave November is over.
I don't have that rule.
Good morning. Comments on your report, sir?
Basically, I go through that real quickly, that we're down the month of November. Our calls are at 85. We're average about 102 a month. The autopsies, basically, we're down this month, so that's good in the long run. Other than that, you can see like I said, I talked many times before, that our accidents are different with our amount of vehicles that are 17 compared to, his are, because of the ones that go out of town, fly up north or something like that. ODs, actually, we thought we knocked out of here at 29, but yesterday on one of our pendings came back. We had no idea that this was going to be an overdose, and they ended up being loaded with fentanyl and cocaine. So that was so we're now at 30, which is over what we were last year. And the only other part that I put on there, and I think it was registered in the paper last night, that we had 28 Narcan saves to the police officers. That's a lot, 28 saves. That could have been 28 autopsies. So my hat's off to the law enforcement of this community for what they do in helping us out on the Narcan.
Questions or comments on the report? We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign.
And last but not, I'll have our state of the coroner's office for once we get all of our pendings in.
Okay. Thank you. Any old business to come before the committee? Any old business? Any new business to come before the committee? New business, make a motion to adjourn. Mr. Snipes, second by Mr. Fairfield. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.